welcome everyone to Avopod's edition of Giving You the Business,
where we help you make your dollars make sense.
You got to make those dollars make sense somehow.
Do.
We're excited to have our guest on here today talking about her business. Mike, let me tell you a little bit about Jasmin Brand. Jasmin Brand is an entrepreneur, writer, speaker, and thought leader in digital media, brand strategy, and diverse startups. She is the founder of The Start, a creative agency specializing in cultural rich content and experiential events. She is also the founder of Her Texas. She was named the official city leader for Dallas in 2020 Backstage Capital Tour, and also named a minority business leader of the year by the Dallas Business Journal. Jasmin, welcome to the show.
Thank you all for having me. I'm excited to be here. And I like that, making dollars into cents.
Yes, ma'am. That's what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, our motto is we 50 something. So, we know a little something about something.
I like that.
Hopefully we got some sense.
Yeah.
I won't be revealing my age today. So we good.
Well, we know you only like 25.
I know.
Okay, now this is going to be a great
So I'm going to go ahead and jump in.
Jump in, Mike.
As I was perusing your website, I was reading about your journey and your path, and you mentioned that you initially wanted to be an attorney in kind of like the Claire Huxtable. And for those of you out here who are not old enough, Claire Huxtable was the wife on the Cosby Show.
Yeah.
And everybody wanted her to be their mom, or men wanted to marry her. She was like...
I had a crush on Claire.
She was the perfect woman.
Yeah, I had a crush on Claire.
Yeah, she's perfect.
Yeah.
So anyway, but then you took kind of a turn from that, and you went down another path. So just talk to us about when you decided to make that switch and what kind of caused you to change directions with your career.
Yeah, so my career has that's kind of been the symbol of it, is I've always kind of tried to leave myself open to taking different paths. But back then, when I was in school and I went to SMU, I actually wanted to work for the UN. I really loved the idea of traveling. I studied several languages back then. Don't ask me. I don't remember none of it. But
Voulez-vous coucher avec soi? C'est soi? No? No?
No.
Okay.
I studied French, and it's like, I'm in Texas. I probably should have done Spanish. But I had wanted to go to law school, and she was kind of one of my many role models I had as being a very strong woman with a great family. And so I thought, I want to go to law school like her. I want to be an attorney. I really didn't even know what being an attorney actually even meant, though, back then. So I just thought I needed to go to law school because I wanted to be like her. And I toured a couple of schools. I sat in a couple of classes, and I was like, nope. This is definitely not for me. After I got to see what really the process of being an attorney and studying the law. And I knew from early on I had a really creative side that I wanted to kind of tap into. But, I think sometimes college students, you were like, I know what I want to do, I'm passionate about, but then it's like, I also know I need to get a job. So I was kind of at that crossroads too. So I ended up getting an internship at the Dallas Morning News in the marketing department, and was like, okay, yeah, this is what I should be doing. And I was like, I'll put law school, that stuff on hold. And I told my mom that. She was like, you never going. I was like, you right. so I did. And I started to realize marketing was the world for me. I studied political science, international studies, and I had English and French minors because I was wanting to work for the UN. So marketing was not actually what I thought I was going to do, but I always have been someone who created new ideas and was always a kind of prolific writer. I just didn't know to go to school for it. So I was excited that I got the internship at the Dallas Morning News, which is why I'm a huge fan of internships and working for little to no money in the beginning of your career, because you need to be exposed to so many different things. Because sometimes your worldview is so small, and my worldview was the Cosby Show.
Yeah.
And as far as successful Black women, she was it for me. So.
Right. Now, we have a lot in common, actually, after listening to you for the first few minutes, because I actually wanted to go to law school as well.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
I was going to be an
You
attorney.
didn't want to be Clint Huxtable, though.
No, I didn't want to be Claire Huxtable. I wanted to be the male version of Claire
Okay.
Huxtable.
Okay.
I watched an old movie called 12 Angry Men. Have you ever heard of that movie?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, it's a classic movie, and it inspired me. But then I never went like your mom. My mom said, "You ain't going back," and I never did. But I was also someone who wrote constantly poetry, short stories, books. So that's very interesting. That is very interesting. So let me ask you this. It doesn't sound like calling you a marketing professional really does capture everything that you do. How would you describe your business?
So when I decided to become an entrepreneur, which is, I would say that's how I define myself today, usually it wasn't, I always say it's by accident, but if I think back to when I was little and just selling Girl Scout cookies and just, I had a bunch of hustles when I went to SMU. And my dad had a mechanic shop over in South Dallas. For people who are familiar with South Dallas, he had his shop was across from the Borden plant. Actually, I shouldn't even say that because all kind of stuff went down in his shop. So I shouldn't.
Okay. So let me interject. Let me interject.
Oh, sure.
Anytime someone says South Dallas,
oh boy,
I've got to ask them this question.
Here we go.
Mike hit me up to some South Dallas lingo, and we're gonna get a T-shirt that has this saying on it. Are you familiar with the saying "Stop high-siding"?
No.
Well, you must have grew up in Oak Cliff.
It wasn't really South Dallas.
So here's the thing. My parents were separated, right? So my dad lived in South Dallas. So all my family's from South Dallas. My grandmother lived there. My dad lived on Scott Street for a long time. So we grew up with him there, but like we lived in East Dallas for the most part with my mom.
Okay.
So I have my tone about both. But yeah, for sure, like we went to Big Daddy's. We hung out. I mean, I was in South Dallas all the time. But that one, no, that doesn't sound, maybe the pronunciation is throwing me out.
Maybe that's my Bronx accent.
Well, I grew up in Fraser Court, so that's where we.
Is that the hood?
Stop outside.
I got my girl from Fraser Court.
Okay. Is that like Cabrini Green in Chicago? That's like the area you do not want to go.
Not quite as bad as Cabrini.
Not quite as bad.
It was okay. I mean,
not at that intense level.
Right.
Yeah, I'm learning some stuff about Mike. Some of the darker side of Mr. Hubbard here that I never knew.
See.
But anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We get off on a tangent sometimes, and I get distracted. But you were telling me about your business.
Oh yeah, so I would say entrepreneur for sure, but I always try to keep it open because when I try to put myself in a box, I miss out on opportunities that way. So I didn't really go to school to become a marketer, but that's what my profession has been. I've run an agency for the last 10 plus years, and it came because I was always trying to solve something or find answers to stuff. When I started my agency, I had a friend that asked me for some help. She was doing a campaign for you guys, that Ford Fiesta car. I don't know if I even see these anymore on the road, but doing a diversity campaign for them. Yeah, and she wanted some ideas, and I gave them to her, and she was like, they like your ideas. You should send an invoice, and I didn't even know what that was or how much to charge. And I remember, I think I Googled or asked a couple people, and I think I told them like $1,000, and she was like, she replied back like within 2 minutes. She was like, yeah, they said that'd be great. That's why I knew like I need to figure out what my pricing structure was, because obviously that was.
So she's good. She's good, Mike. You see how she slipped that in there? Like, don't ask me for no advice, because if you do, I'm going to send you an invoice.
Right.
Because we typically ask for free advice on these shows. But she slid that in there.
People want to do the coffee all the time. That's kind of one of the positives of COVID, because I didn't get asked to do coffee. A lot of times, people are like, Jasmin, let's go have coffee. I legit think they want to have coffee with me. I'm like, oh no, you want it. This was a branding session.
Right.
Yeah, that's what this show is. We tricked you.
They want a marketing strategy.
We want a market
for a latte.
Have you ever marketed a podcast?
Exactly.
just
I'll get you a venti latte.
Exactly. Yes. I need you to help me to create a whole campaign.
Right.
So I started my agency because I was helping her with this campaign and started realizing I was really good at coming up with ideas. I always have been since I was young. My dad used to always tell me too, when I went to SMU, I'll never forget, everybody had like a really nice car. I didn't have a car the first year. The second year I did get I had a Chevy Corsica the first year.
Chevy Corsica.
Right, and not everybody even knows what a Chevy Corsica is.
You don't have to tell us your age now. We know.
We know, right?
Okay, it was like a purple color too.
Oh,
random, right?
Oh,
but all my friends and stuff had Range Rovers. It was SMU, and I was like, "Dad, everybody else has nice cars and more money." He's like, "Yeah, you're right. They have more money than you, for sure." I was like, he's like, "Yeah, but you have ideas," and he goes, "Ideas are priceless." He said, "That'll be the thing that'll help you out in life." He said, "They may have that, but you have ideas." And I'm back then at 20. I'm like, "Okay, thanks. Yeah."
Right. I want a car. I don't want ideas.
You know, and it's and I followed Jasmin, you know, over the years, and you do so much. I've been to a lot of your events, and it's like you're always doing something new. And here recently, it seems like you've focused in on women and women business owners. So you started something called Her Texas. So tell us about that, and what was the inspiration for that?
Yeah, so I have always been for the advancement of women. I started so many different organizations or events for women early on in my career. And it was because I was looking for the resources for myself selfishly. I was looking to connect with a certain type of woman. I was having a hard time finding her. And so I started creating my own stuff. I've always done that for a long time. And it's usually because I see something's missing. So as my agency was growing, I got a chance to serve in a leadership position for a media company here called Launch DFW. It was my first introduction to the startup world. I had always been in the marketing space. It was my agency in creative. We're around a lot of creatives. I'd never been in the startup world. And I had a leadership role, which is kind of very rare for a Black woman in a leadership role in startup space in general. So I did that for 2 years. And in those 2 years, it was amazing, but also kind of a hot mess at the same time, too, because I got to meet so many incredible people. And I'm attracted to ideas and innovation. That's nothing but startup world. So that was a really great part. The not so great part was the fact that it was very isolating, very stressful. It still has a bro culture. And as I was connecting with women around the state, and not just female founders, although they have a special part for me because I am one, but I was just meeting really incredible women around the state. This was about 2.5 years ago. And it was like, you should meet. I just met this great woman in Houston, and I would tell a friend in Dallas, it's like, you need to meet with her. You guys have similar businesses. Y'all should probably be talking. And then I'd be talking to a woman that's investing in Austin, and I'm like, hey, I know a business owner that she should be on your radar. So I'm sending these emails, and I'm very slow on email, just because I get so many. I'm like, there has to be a better way than me doing the connecting. I said, there must be something. The chambers have something in place where we have some interstate connections. So stuff is happening inside the cities here in Texas. This might be, and this is probably not just a Texas thing, but I'm starting here just because this is where I'm from. But like the cities are siloed. And so we've got close to 30 million people here in Texas, but there's not a lot of connection happening. We saw this with the snowstorm in February, right? We've seen this happen when things happen to us as a state, but we're not actually even leveraging leveraging each other's talents and resources. The cities are not working together, and no offense to you all, but I do think that women collaborate in a much different, more comprehensive way. And I felt like if women in Houston knew that there was a woman launching something in Dallas, we would support each other. Like we would. I just think that's the way women are in general, or the women that I tend to like to connect with, is that if I know a woman that is needing help with something in Waco, I try to help her out. And I know I'm not the only one that wants to be this way. So that was the impetus for Her Texas, was some sort of a connection point for women in the state so that they could start to collaborate and communicate better.
Amongst all of the things you talked about, I also heard that you host a show called Built in Texas.
I do.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. So with Her Texas, my goal, so for the last 2 years, I've been researching and meeting with women before COVID, and I started hosting these events around the state. They were coffee chats at first, but then only like 4 or 5 women are coming. Then I called it a coffee and a mimosa and started doing it on Fridays at 11, and I had like 100 women showing up, which tells you a whole lot.
So I'm sensing a theme here, Jasmin. There's events around alcohol.
Right.
well, mimosa, which I don't count as like a traditional.
You met Mike at happy hour. You got the events going, got mimosas going.
You know, I actually joined in on a couple of those coffee chats.
Oh, that's right, you did.
But I didn't realize it was just for women.
No, it wasn't actually. It wasn't. But the problem is, I just have a large female follower. I was like, yeah, Mike represents.
I need to be on one of those calls.
That's what we need.
They're good. I mean, I really enjoy.
Can I get invited to one of those calls? I'm single.
We need more guys. I met all these incredible women around the state and had planned on launching last summer, but of course, COVID. So I started saying, okay, 2021 is when we're going to start to come out with this platform. And I thought, okay, I need a way to start to introduce what we're talking about. And the best way I thought to do that was, because we couldn't do events, and that's kind of what I've always done in the past, was to start showing the women that are shaping the state. I feel like that's really kind of the base foundation for what we're trying to do, is that, and to show that we're looking at a new Texas. So it's not to say like the current Texas is bad, although we have a lot of challenges here and need some change in leadership. But people are like, I don't like living here, or I don't like what's going on, but yet we have to start to affect change. And it's my belief that ideas and innovation is the way to do that. And so Built in Texas is just a quick little 30-minute every Monday broadcast on LinkedIn and Facebook. And we just introduce you to women they're doing stuff around the state. They're building, I think, what I refer to as the new Texas, which is a mix of transplants. You know, Texas, the culture of Texas, which people still have us in the cowboy boot and all that, which we still are. That's a big part of our ethos. But like, we have so many transplants here. I mean, it of course has changed the trajectory of the state. You've got people coming in from Chicago, New York, Atlanta. That's going to give us a different flavor. I mean, it's still Texas, but it's changed. And so this new Texas, when I see people talking about all the bad stuff happening here, it's in my mind. It's very stressful. But I feel like that's not going to be here much longer. I think we're about to head towards a shift. So Built in Texas is a way. If you're someone that's like, I didn't know this stuff was happening, or I didn't know we actually had some like badass women here in the state, or like stuff is really cool that's happening here. There's some stuff, positive stuff. That was the goal for Built in Texas. Just a quick little introduction every week.
Right.
And you mentioned something interesting. You mentioned going virtual. Has the pandemic caused you to pivot? Has it caused you to change how you do business?
I hate to say this, but I'm thriving in the pandemic,
That's
more
okay.
so in the quarantine, because of which people never believe, but I'm actually more of on the scale of an introvert. I just am loud.
No.
That's the confusing point. Yeah.
No.
So I actually really creative. I love to write. I'm very quiet. Like, I like to spend a lot of time. So that's why people would see me at events, but you would never see me past an hour ever. I'm very strategic about that, because I get tapped out because talking, and I'm engaging with so many different people, specifically women, all the time, that I have to reserve some of that for the creative side of me. So I've been able to be comfortable at home, which has allowed me to do way more networking and connections than I did in person, because driving everywhere was just really hard. I used to go to a lot of events, a lot of stuff, and I was just tapped out. Now I've been able to really connect and grow Her Texas under the radar around the state. It's much easier to talk to and connect with a woman, in Houston right now, than us to try to have to drive down there and meet or fly or whatever. So business-wise, yes, I'd say because we're building a network of women, we've had to, of course, absorb what's happened. Working women have been affected, specifically working mothers. So many of them have had to leave the workforce to take care of their children. That's an epidemic. It's at epidemic levels, the amount of women that have been affected that way. So I do absorb all of that, just because I am trying to build a platform for all women.
Right.
But me personally, I've been able to be a lot more creative. I've also just slowed down. I like new ideas, and I like to put things out fast. And I think before it was because I'm so excited about it. But sometimes what happens is that I never get to enjoy it, because I'm like, okay, on to the next one. I'm so like tapped out by it. With COVID and with quarantine, I've had to stop and slow down with Her Texas. I would have already had 20 parties
right
by now. But the cool thing is, I think my vision was much smaller when I was planning a big launch party last summer. The vision I had for Her Texas was we were just going to be a really cool women's organization. And I started realizing, being in quarantine, that we needed to be at a much bigger level. we need an actually ecosystem change. Like, because the problem is if you create a lot of great organizations, but you still got problems with the ecosystem, it's just another organization. So we're coming at it from a 360 and a top level. Instead of us waiting for people to talk about us, like we've got initiatives for women, it's always a second paragraph situation, or people of color. An organization will talk about Texas and talk about all this stuff. Then they get to us at the end of the conversation of the speech. I'm like, we need to be first, right? And I was like, well, who's gonna put us first? The current leadership, no, they're not going to, right? So it's going to take us to actually do it for ourselves. And in some way, it is creating a new table, if you will. Like a lot of times people are waiting to get a seat at the table. And I'm like, my back hurts. I'm tired. I'm trying to get a seat at that table. We're just going to create our own. And if you cool, and then our thing is, if you were a man or woman that believes that women should have a chance to create whatever they want to and should have equal access to things, we want you at our table. So it's a movement for Texas women, but we want all people, right, everyone. And it's not just people who are in Texas to be part of it too. We've actually had quite a bit of support from people outside because, I mean, Texas just has such a huge impact. You've either been to Texas, lived here, moved away. I mean, this is why the state is it's a game changer.
Right. And I'm smiling right now because you saying you slowed down. So I'm like, if this is a slowed down version of Jasmin.
Oh my gosh.
It's like, wow. So I'm like,
yeah, I would have been doing so much right now. This is why I've been able to work out. I've been going to bed early. Like I feel like skin's looking better since before because I'm actually to chill out and relax. Before I'm like burning at both ends.
Right.
In fact, what's so funny is when they said we were starting to open up, I kind of got sad.
Right.
Because I don't want things to go back completely as they were. Because I think there's been some positive things that have happened because of COVID. I mean, a lot of us are getting outside more. I just read about a Black hiking club in DeSoto or Cedar Hill. My sister was telling me about it because they've got all these trails out there.
Right.
And the fact that we're doing stuff in nature now, we're cooking more, and I just think there's been a lot of positive changes. Like I don't want to go to so many brunches.
Right.
Next time around.
Right. I'm with you on that. So one of the services that you provide, you're a mentor and a coach. So, and we've had several business owners on, and they've all mentioned that they have had mentors in their lives that really made a big difference. So I wanted to know, have you had that mentor or coach in your career that really has impacted you and shaped, what you're doing now?
Yes, and I actually wouldn't even call myself a coach because a lot of times when I give people advice, they haven't even asked for it yet. A lot of times I literally will send someone a DM and say, I have to tell you this, because it's this thing where, and it's because I'm just very intuitive and an empath. When I see someone's marketing or see what they're doing and I hear them speak and I immediately can feel intuitively that it's just not a good fit. So a lot of times people have not asked me for my advice yet. I literally am like, I have to tell you this, that you need to redo this. And they're like, what do you mean? I just spent all this money. I'm like, you got to start all over. It's one of these things when it's right.
Don't take it personally.
Right.
Yeah, it's not. And when it's right, you feel it. And the traction you get from a client perspective changes everything. And I've had mentors who've been like that for me. My number one has been my dad, who's no longer here, but he was so intuitive about people and very blunt to me as well. Like, just because I think he knew that I could do much more. And so the idea of not being afraid to be the first or to try stuff. I always say, like, I've made lots of mistakes. Some things have been very successful. There's some that have been horribly. I've made lots of mistakes just as a new CEO, still trying to find my way. Also, too, not always knowing how to hire the best way. I mean, these are things that if you haven't gotten to be apprentice or gotten to actually be part of it before, just there's not a lot of us Black female CEOs. We now have two in the current Fortune 500, two
really
Black female CEOs. So usually, and then when you are also at a CEO level, to be able to go to people and talk about things, you can't talk to everybody about your challenges and problems. So that's something that I hope to correct with Her Texas, is that you need a revolution of sisterhood or community too, because we say the words like mentorship, and I even think mentorship is kind of is like next level mentorship is sponsorship, because you could have someone, you could be mentoring someone and you're like, hey, you got me, you connected me, I got this job interview, or I got this connection. But sponsoring means you're going to make sure I know what to wear, I'm saying the right things. You know what I mean? Like, this is the difference between, I think, mentorship and sponsorship. And I've most certainly had so many people that have said things to me and kept me on the right path. Now, was I ready to hear it early in my career? No, I'm very stubborn. But as I've gotten older, I realized that you have to start to make a choice. It's like, do you want to be right, or do you want to be doing this all day long? And when I was younger, I was rather wanting to be right. But now I'm like, I want to go to bed by 10 now. Like, that's a new jazz point. I'm not trying to be up at 2 or 3 like I used to be. I like to get up. I like to have a balance of life. And the people in my life that I've seen that have balances of life, they're not trying to do everything. They know how to hire. They know how to ask for help. They know how to say, yes, you're the best person to do this, but it's okay if you hire somebody and they do it at 85%. That is a lesson that's taken me a long time to get there, because I'm a perfectionist. But like, that time away to actually to work on things that I want to work on, or actually be a CEO, is huge. And it's a huge lesson for, I think, a lot of young entrepreneurs, but a lot of women too, because we're just used to carrying a lot of the weight and feel like we just have to do it. So I think the mentors in my life have taught me business lessons, but they've also taught me life lessons. Like, sometimes you don't need to always have the last word. It's okay if they think this about you, because the real people know who you are.
Right. So I've got a 2-part question for you. One, you mentioned corporate America, and there's this notion, more so when it comes to women, but there's this notion of the glass ceiling, right? Mm-hmm. And talk to some of our younger folk about that, because the premise of our show is also reaching our younger folk, our Gen Zers, our millennials, and kind of bridging that gap between boomers and millennials, and giving them some wisdom that maybe we didn't get until we were later on in life. But also, what does it take to be a CEO? We hear people throwing that out there all the time. Everyone's got a Facebook page and an Instagram page, and they're the CEO of this and the CEO of that. But it sounds like you understand the essence of what it really means to not just call yourself a CEO, but be the CEO. So tell us about those 2 things, the glass ceiling and the CEO.
I'll start with the CEO first for the glass ceiling. So I think being a CEO is an evolution. And for me, I'm still learning how to do it, because for the first part of my business was straight hustling, because I didn't know really what I was doing. So I think actually graduating to a place where you start focusing on vision and start building a succession plan, and realizing that you can let it go. A lot of us get very tied into stuff because we have given up time and money on stuff. But what I've learned from my white male counterparts is they know how to cut stuff off real quick. They don't have an emotional connection to stuff. They let it go. They take that check and keep going. We will fight over stuff, negotiate. I mean, it's like, so the idea is like separating yourself from the business, that you're an entity into yourself, and that your job as CEO is to set vision and to ensure that you're creating a team or building out an organization that can fulfill that vision, that you don't need to be in everything. That's something that's really, really hard when you have not learned how to do that. And your first inkling is to say, I have to be in touch of everything. But most of your really super successful CEOs are not tied into everything. That's what you hire really good people for. And most of the time when you become a CEO, you don't want people to know, because A, you got to pay a lot of money for it. And B, I don't want people asking me for money too. So I only started adding it to my stuff because I'm launching Her Texas. But before, you didn't see that on there, because I'm like, I don't want y'all asking. I'll find out who the CEO is. You can contact her, because you're not really that big, because people, you know what the weight of it is on there. Some people are very easy to put CEO this, CEO that. To me, it's almost like playing dress up, because it's when it comes time to pay actual bills and comes time to fire people. And when you make colossal mistakes, as I have made mistakes that impact other people, and you got to live with, and they get mad at you. I mean, that's stuff that you take home with you, and your decisions impact people's ability to pay their kids' college tuition. I mean, it's a big deal. So I would say build it before you label it, right?
Build it
Like
before
actually
you
build
label it.
something.
Write that down.
Yeah, build it.
Build
Yeah,
it
build it. Now,
before you
build it
label it.
before you label it. Yeah, because it's like
You're not going to send me an
put the
invoice for that,
title
are
on
you?
you. No, not for that one. Not for that one.
We're going to give you all the credit.
Right.
But as far as the glass ceiling, you know, I just had a conversation about somebody with this not too long ago. You know, as a person of color, I think it's really important for us to be aware of where we are in corporate America. Now, I say this to say that doesn't mean you can't have a successful career. You can't rise in the ranks. You can't have, build the thing life you want and have a really nice lifestyle and a living and accomplish your goals. But we still are not at an equitable stage yet, which is why it's so important at the same time that we are trying to support young people to do really well on the corporate level. At the same time, we're also encouraging Black founders and Black entrepreneurship because we need to be able to create our own company so that we can hire our own. This is the way we kind of balance things out. It's not to say that current companies don't care about diversity and inclusion, but it's still kind of like I said about the idea of women and people of color when it comes to Texas. We're still kind of a second paragraph thing. Diversity and inclusion shouldn't be under the Office of Diversity. It's like when I see people hire a Black person to be their chief diversity officer. I was like, I mean, I could have done that one, right? It's like you're not really trying at this point.
We got to have fried chicken Fridays. We got to have Taco Tuesdays, right?
Right.
We got to have
like,
Wiener Schnitzel Wednesdays.
Really, exactly. You're not really pushing the needle.
And it's like diversity.
It should be part of your business strategy, right? Like it should be a 360-degree thing, but people just aren't thinking that way. So I've noticed a lot of people will work their way up in corporate America. And I did several positions before I decided to cross over to become an entrepreneur. But I realized when I can create my own destiny with my own company, it becomes addictive, which is why I realized I could no longer work for anybody else. Because if I can, when I wake up every day, I can control the trajectory of my career. With corporate America, there's still a lot of politics there. And we saw what happened with Black Lives Matter. We saw how it happened. Some people, conversations happening at their companies. Some companies were great and knew how to connect with their employees. Right. A lot of companies did nothing. And so it's like you hope to become a what at that company, and they can't even talk about George Floyd or Black Lives Matter. Right. You know, it's a challenge. And so I always tell young people to be very realistic, to also view companies right now. This isn't the time where you work for a company for 20 years anymore. Like that's the old right. way. We don't think that way. And so I always encourage a lot of young people to consider it. It's like dating. You know, it's the same before you get married, you need to date several people so you know what you like, what works for you. Just like people I've hired before, I said, if you want a traditional 9-to-5 where you have a lot of FaceTime with me, we won't be a good fit. So because I'm definitely more of an entrepreneurial startup, you'll move up fast, you'll get lots of responsibility, you'll get rewarded, but you won't get traditional stuff. And so I have always told a lot of the young people that I've hired to like, see what you like. My style may not be great either, and that's okay. Like try on a bunch of different companies and see what you like first. But also know that the company that owe you anything, this is the other old school thinking too. I think the way my mom was, worked for a company a long time. Even she's like, you get those benefits, stay with them forever. And then what happens is when that company lets you go, that's when people start going postal because you didn't give that company everything. Right? You didn't act like that couple is your spouse. And to me, it's like you're your own entity. You have your own, before you have a life outside of that company. That's why I'm all about a side hustle, creating and doing stuff. And it doesn't have to be monetized either. It could just be a blog. It could be something that you really love, but have something outside of your corporate career so that you understand that it's you against the company in a way, right? It's like you are your own being, you are your own entity. And so the company, you hope to find one that's great, that you can find a lot of synergy in there. But just like with relationships, we all know that's really, really hard to find a really good, equally yoked mate or partner.
Very hard.
Yeah, it is.
Extremely hard.
Kid could talk on that for a minute.
Incredibly hard. Impossible.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to get the mimosas out, Ken. It sound like
he might need something.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I was distracted there for a minute.
You had a flashback?
I was having a flashback, forward, sideways. I was just flashing.
Lord have mercy.
So tell us, Jasmin, what advice would you give to anyone listening considering starting their own business? You talk about having that hustle going on outside of your corporate environment. What advice would you give them?
I think you need to determine like the level of commitment you want to have with it. So I was always told, one of my mentors always said, if you're not really getting paid, it's a hobby in the beginning, and that's okay. But if you think that the hobby or the thing you really love is something that you want to get monetized, you want to make it into something, then you have to. There's a switch that has to go on too. A lot of times people get pressured though. Like sometimes you just need, it doesn't just be something fun and something you do for the community or something you do for yourself. That's okay, but we have this thing now where everybody feels like they've got to be starting something or they got to quit and become an entrepreneur, and that's not the case either. It is okay to have things that you really love. Everything doesn't have to be, have an Instagram account, and everything doesn't have to turn into this big thing. But if you are someone that says, you know what, I think I want to turn this into something that could bring some income in or some revenue, or it could turn into something that makes an impact, or I build out a team with it, then I think that you have to kind of there's another level of commitment that comes that has to come into place. And so I always tell people, keep your check as long as possible. Don't get fooled by these Instagram accounts. All in a pot of champagne. Trust that. Trust. Because I miss having my regular. I tell people all the time, I miss having that check every other Friday. I do, because sometimes I've done well, and then there's times when it's been scary. Right. And so I tell people, if you get a check every 2 weeks, or you getting that consistency, yeah, your hours going to be messed up then, because you are going to have to do both for a little bit so you can cross over. But that's the way to determine if you really want to do it anyway, right? Because it's like you're going to cross over and be like, I'm out of here. I'm quitting. I'm doing this. I'm like, and then you go from here, you realize this is when you cross over and say, you know what, Jasmin, I think I'm ready to make this into something that's going to be monetized. Then it becomes a much bigger level of commitment. You don't get the same flexibility. And so that's a choice. You don't have to cross over here to create. Some things don't need to be a business. They don't need to be that way. You can still find joy. And there's things that sometimes over time will eventually become something that becomes a business. It doesn't have to be this big rat race. But if you say you want a business, then yes, that does require a certain level of commitment from you. You can't go out as much and spend the kind of money you spend too. There's a certain investment in your own education and your own awareness. If you don't even know the difference between what an LLC is, if you don't know the different business formation, then you have to start investing in yourself. You can't go out and drink or eat or do some of the shopping you did before. Like, you've got to pull back a little bit if you want to actually start to build something. And you've got to actually create a plan and start to build out the structure for it. And you've got to, it's not something that you can just kind of turn on and off, which is why I had a girlfriend of mine. She was baking pies and stuff on the side. And she always talks about this on her social, that she's like, I'm fine with being an entrepreneur that does this on the side. And people will be all coming for her in her comments like, how come you don't do this full time? And I was so proud of her for keeping strong about that, because she's like, I'm keeping my check and benefits. Right. I don't know about you, but paychecks are good. I keep it. Yeah. And then she finally made a note not too long ago when she said, I've decided I want to just kind of focus on my corporate career. And that's totally fine. Right. Like, we don't need to put this pressure that you don't need to be CEO of everything. Like, there's a reason why there's only like 2.5% of people that actually cross over to this dark side. This is not an easy thing. There's freedom in it, and you can do a lot of amazing things, but it's not for the faint of heart. Like, it's not. So that would probably be the biggest thing I'd say is make a decision on if you want it to be something fun and something you do as a hobby and something you just do because you love it and you like what it does for other people, or make a decision and say, no, I actually want to actually build a business. And that means there's some things you have to start to change in your lifestyle and in your way of thinking in order to do that.
We had someone on recently that talked about something they were doing as a side hustle. And they got to a point where they realized they couldn't call it a side hustle. They couldn't keep labeling it a side hustle. They wanted this to be a business. So they got to that point of decision, as you're saying. We talk about, everyone gets to that point. I remember watching the Steve Harvey show one day. He talked about getting to the edge of the cliff. Right. And you don't have to decide whether you're going to stay there or you're going to decide whether you're going to jump off the cliff and trust that, you're going to get bumped and bruised before you hit the bottom. But you're going to get, you're going to get there and you're going to be okay. So, we all got to make a decision. I talk about, we talked about earlier about writing. I like to write myself. shameless plug. But I always talked about in a book that I wrote. I talked about this in this one section called All In. Right, you get to a point where you just have to decide that I'm all in, like in poker game. Push all your chips to the middle of the table and say, "This is what I'm going to do. Right or wrong, fail or succeed, I'm going to do it, and I won't feel comfortable unless I know I've given it my all."
I like the 1st and the 15th.
You like the 1st and the 15th? This 1st and the 15th are good.
I have a faint heart. I'm sorry.
1st and the 15th, especially when it comes to benefits, like medical benefits. Right. So I've been this a budding entrepreneur for a while. Started a film company and have written some things, Jasmine, but I still kept on to my 1st and I kept on to my 1st and 15th. I held on to that.
Okay.
Right, because it came with medical benefits. And I had 2 kids in college and all that stuff.
And you old.
And
And you
Mike reminds me all the time.
No, wait, Mike. They said they had a study not too long ago that the companies that are actually that are successful right now start off over age 42.
Really?
It looks like most of the business, the number of business started are definitely younger, but the ones that are actually making revenue and actually sustaining themselves, the entrepreneurs are older.
That's great.
That's encouraging.
Somebody told me the other day, put it in perspective, because I was going through one of my many moments where I'm like, man, I'm 50 something. Is this where I'm supposed to be in life? Right. And he said to me, Ken, Jesus did it in 3.5 years.
Wow.
He changed the world.
Okay.
Right. I'm not trying to get preachy and heavy, but he puts it in perspective, right? You know, you never know.
He made a lot of sacrifices too.
Yeah. But I am.
But you know, we live in a time now too where we have so many social tools and so many tools that are available that we did not have like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So it is possible to create something in a shorter period of time. But I love the idea of what you said, all in. I'm a big proponent of like the universe and telling people, right? Like I had a friend of mine tell me, she's like, if you're looking to get married or if you're looking for a job, you got to tell people. Like, how do we know you're unemployed or looking for love? You got to actually tell people. And so sometimes when you tell people, I'm going full time in this business, all of a sudden people change and interact with you different too. So I do agree with you.
I'm trying to subliminally program you here.
Oh man.
You didn't hear me, but I kept saying, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. Hopefully.
ABC always be closing.
Always be closing.
See,
I like Jasmine.
I told you would like her.
Oh
ABC,
wow.
Yeah.
Always be closing. You do not get 100% of the business that you don't ask for. Did I say that right?
That's right.
I think that's
I said that right.
Yeah.
I'm 50 something.
100%.
You keep reminding me.
Yeah. That's right.
Look at my notes because I can't remember.
Right.
Remember a whole lot of stuff. But yeah, you have to go all in.
You do.
You have to get to that point, make a decision, put all your chips on the table, and go all in.
Right. So Jasmine, we got one last question that we ask everybody. We might not be able to ask this much longer though.
Well, hopefully we won't be able to ask it much longer.
Okay.
Right. It's one of those things where you plan to fail or you plan to
We don't
end
want to have to keep asking.
or something like that. Okay, go ahead.
So during the pandemic, did you pick up any new hobbies or interests?
Personally.
You know what? Yeah, I think eating. So I really studied macronutrition and actually fitness too. So before I'd always kind of did yo-yo with eating and dieting, like, oh, I gotta lose weight, let me go, do this real quick stuff. I really didn't start thinking about what the food I'm eating and how it impacts my skin, my mood. So I actually started to really dig into the food I'm eating, the benefits of protein and carbs are a good thing. So yeah, that's one of the things I was really proud about was that because before I would just be drinking coffee at 10 o'clock at night, skipping breakfast, because based on that lifestyle, just go, which is what people tell you, keep grinding and all that stuff. And
right.
That's for the birds. That's so 1985 to me, is that no, you need rest. You actually need to eat the right food. So that's probably the biggest thing that I will carry with me, even as we open back up, is actually working out. I work out every morning now at 5:30 to 6. And I'm also counting macros. So before I'd be like, I can't eat any of this stuff. And then I go binge and whatever.
Right.
And now I'm like, I can eat whatever I want as long as it's within the macros that I'm trying to count. So I'd say I'm trying to have this amount of protein every day, trying to have this amount of carbs. So it gives a lot of freedom. And so I think it's just taking the stress away from that. And I think as women, probably men too, but women especially, food, how you look, your body. And we all know a lot of us me included, gained weight during COVID too. So I've used that time to say, okay, I definitely gained some weight because I was definitely ordering some food and sitting there watching movies and stuff and eating. So if I come out of this, now I had some friends that lost like 50 pounds and ran races. I didn't go that far.
No marathons.
I am eating better. I am eating much better. I'm actually understanding what it means when I eat this and all this. So I'm actually pretty proud about that.
Right.
Excellent. Well, tell us, Jasmin, how can people get a hold of you, learn more about you, or partake in any of your services?
Yeah, so I am trying to do a better job about social media. What's funny is because I help people with that, I'm like a hairstylist whose hair is a hot mess because I'm not the best at my social. And that was some of the selfish reasons I did Built in Texas. This forces me to do to have that ready to go. And every Monday I'm out there, and it comes back from the introverted side too. I technically don't like to actually be out in front, which people be like, what? But it's the truth. So I have to actually force myself to put myself, because I'm like, I don't want to promote too much. But I realized that I have a lot of information, a lot of experiences, good and bad, that I need to share, would like to share. So social media, I'm on every social channel, and my name's Jazz with no E in Brand, Brand. So you can usually find me. Now there is a gossip blog girl named the Jasmin Brand.
You know what? I ran across that.
And I can't beat her in SEO because she's posting stuff about Drake and like Portia and
Right.
stuff. So I'll never beat her in SEO because she's putting out so much content. And I've had people call me too, which is the craziest part. Jasmin, Wendy Williams just mentioned you on her show. I said, can I have y'all pause? Let's be realistic. Now, why would Wendy Williams be talking about me on the show this morning?
I mean, you didn't just run with it?
I don't know.
You didn't just run with it? Like, yeah, me and Wendy, we were chatting the other day, chopping it up. Yeah. Visit my page. No?
Well, no, it'd be different if it was like the Today or Oprah show. I think that would be an alignment. Better, right?
Throwing some shade on Wendy.
Right. No, this is like a gossip blog type.
Yeah, like it just doesn't fit in kind of where I've been. So that's why it's like, why would I be on the show? But it happens. I get tagged for her stuff, and I know she gets annoyed because I get tagged in a lot of gossip stuff, and then she gets tagged in a lot of very professional business stuff. So I know she gets annoyed by it, but oh well.
But you are the Jasmin Brand.
The Jasmin Brand.
Right, that's
Jasmin
true.
Brand.
And she has an E on her name. She's got an E on her name.
Right.
So tell us one of the juiciest gossip things that you've been tagged on.
You know what? Let's see. The last one was, and see, I don't even know the characters and names. I'm so bad about it. But like, it was something on one of the girls from Real Housewives of Atlanta. Not the current thing with Portia and the new engagement, because that's some hot tea that just happened. But this was like a couple months ago where there's a couple. Now I don't watch Real Housewives of Atlanta. I used to, but Nene's no longer on the show, so I don't watch it. But there was a fight or something happening. So the girl that started the fight was gonna go live. So she tagged me on IG, right? So all these people kept tagging me.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. And I just let them do it too because I got some likes out of it. No shade on that one. So.
I actually went to college, played football in college with a tall, 6'4" redheaded guy named Ken Jenkins.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And I met another guy who used to play for the Redskins. You could look this up. His name is Ken Jenkins.
I remember him.
Met him when I was living in Virginia.
Yeah, I remember.
And there was an actor, a white actor, named Ken Jenkins.
Wow.
So, in other words, I'm not very rememberable.
Mike, I think you're the only Mike Hubbard, right?
I'm the only one.
The white Mike Hubbard.
Yeah.
I better be.
You the white Mike Hubbard.
I'm the real white.
You the white Mike Hubbard.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Officially.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. This was a pleasure.
And
great.
We'll be getting a DM from her, Kim.
We'll be getting invoice.
Critiquing
We'll be getting an invoice.
our show.
Send it to the white Mike Hubbard
and asking us,
in Louisville,
what are y'all doing? Stop immediately. Stop
it.
I know.
No. I mean, I love y'all's energy, and I think like more podcasts, they need to be more fun like this too, because some of them getting too serious.
Yeah, they have to be fun because, I mean, you lose the average person's attention within 30 minutes, right? And so you got to have some fun with it. Life is about living, laughing, and loving.
Plus, we just like to have fun. I like to laugh.
And we get distracted very easily.
Yeah, me too.
So thank you again so much. Jasmin Brand, y'all, entrepreneur, writer, speaker, thought leader in digital media, founder of The Start, a creative agency in Perth, Texas. Jasmin, thank you again for being on the show.
Stop outside.